What is up, everybody? Hunter with Lost Socket Garage. Today we have the 68 Golden Nugget Mustang back into the shop. We're doing a new roof, we're doing new drip rails. We're gonna show you how to replace a roof on your coupe and how to make Fastback drip rails work for your coupe. Let's get it. All right, you may recognize this car. We did another episode on the coolness of the 68 Golden Nugget. There's very few of these made. They were only sold in Washington, I believe. So it's called the Golden Nugget because of the paint job and the interior, etc. It was only sold in one state, and it was kind of a tribute to the mining industry there or whatnot. So really cool car. It's not necessarily like a high value, it's just a really cool piece of history. Now the issue with it is that they all came stock with a black vinyl top roof. Now, you vinyl top roof guys, you know how this works. Your vinyl top starts peeling off and you're just peeling back rust left and right, and that is a serious issue on this car. Now I'll be 100% honest, I didn't plan on making this video, but I know that replacing the roof on your coupe, not a coupe to Fastback, but replacing a roof on your coupe can be difficult, so I wanted to walk you through how we do it here. And the biggest struggle that you're gonna find replacing a roof, it's all fairly straightforward, to be honest, except for the drip rails. Now the drip rails are a major issue. Reason being is they don't make new ones. And it's not very easy to get a stock drip rail off of a vehicle without it just crumbling into pieces, because that's really where it rusts the most. On this car, we had a lot of rust down the drip rail and a lot of rust in the roof itself. So since I didn't plan on making this video, I've actually already cut it apart, but I'm gonna walk you through what we've done so far, how we got to the point that we're at, and then I'm gonna walk you through and show you how we're gonna build this drip rail. So let's take a look at what we've done so far. All right, let's take a look here. So we are this far. And again, sorry, wasn't planning on making this video. I would have shown the whole removal process, etc. But it's really straightforward, so I'll just go ahead and cover it for you. Essentially what you have to do is just cut off the roof. Very, very easy. The roof comes down to about here. This piece right here is called the sail panel. Now you'll notice, you Fastback guys out there, you'll notice that the lead line on this car is actually different. Where the quarter panel meets the roof on a Fastback, there's a lead line right around that sail panel. Well, coupes, that lead line is not up here, it's actually down here. This is where your quarter panel ends, then your sail panel goes right here, and then over top of the sail panel comes the roof. Now I would say that the most involved part of this process is really just air hammering everything off. You don't want to mess up your inner structure. Your roof is going to end right here, so basically what I did around the corner of the roof is I just cut the entire body of the roof out, leaving just the tabs that stick up here. That way I come in here with my air hammer, and there's a couple of ways you could do this. You can drill out the holes, but if you drill out the holes, then you're gonna have to come through and repair your front and rear structure. Typically, if you leave it with the lip right here and it sticks up, you know, let's say an inch where it would go into the rest of the roof, typically you can just bend that down and then pop it off with an air hammer. This is a lot thicker of a gauge steel than the roof is. So normally if you're replacing a roof, most of that stuff is going to be rusted anyway. So this is bare bones. Now I have scraped off the stock drip rail. Now there are some repairs that need to be done, little holes here and there. I'm not going to get to actually mounting the roof, the final welding of the roof in this episode, because there are some other issues that need to be addressed with this car, like a filler panel patch, and then that package tray we're probably going to have to rip out. Now the sail panel, I'll show you where it mounts up later, but the sail panel is going to sit down right in this corner and then fit over your quarter panel. So in order to make these repairs, I'll have to have this area free. So I'm going to wait to weld on the rest of the roof. Now, I have wire wheeled the entire roof, and I'm actually going to go through and coat the entire roof, all of the structure, with a rust barrier. Now, you want to be careful because you don't want to get your rust barrier on spots that you're going to end up welding your roof to, which is right here. So typically what I'll do is I'll just take a piece of cardstock and hold it up and then just spray this entire inner structure. I've already done the mid-roof support. So let's show you where, I'm just gonna grab this panel real quick, kind of show you the fitment of the sail panel. Now, there's a reason I took it off at the seam. So this is how your sail panel is going to sit. You'll notice that it sits in a groove that is the top of your quarter panel skin. Now, you want to make sure that you save your quarter panel if you can. If you have rust in this area, obviously you're going to have to patch it. There's a lot of bends right here. It's a giant pain in the ass to patch unless you have a donor coupe. Otherwise, you're going to have to get a full quarter skin. Hopefully, my fingers are crossed for you, that this area is not damaged on yours whatsoever. All there's going to be right here is lead. So all you're going to do is take a torch, and I did a little bit of footage of it, but take a torch and you're going to melt this lead line with your sail panel that sits in right here. Melt the lead line and then scrape your sail panel off, because then you can use this quarter panel as your guide stone when putting on the sail panel and obviously the attached roof. What's up, Derry?
Hi.
What's up, dog? You okay, buddy?
Yeah.
Good. Also right here, so at the front of the roof, I showed you the lead line back here that goes between the sail panel and the quarter. There's also a lead line right here that you're going to need to melt out or dig out with a chisel. It's kind of 6's, doesn't really matter. And then obviously make sure you grind down all of the rest of your, the rest of the remaining spot welds, etc. So do that. Now, taking a look at our progress so far, this is our brand new roof. The roof is a Dynacorn roof, and it came with those sail panels that I was showing you. We ended up getting a Fastback drip rail. Let's show you how this does not fit. All right, this is a Fastback drip rail. This is not a Fastback. There's a coupe. The catch, they do not repop drip rails for coupes. Period. Not. I don't know about 69 and 70. But I have not been able to find any for 65 through 68 coupes whatsoever. They sell the chrome molding, the trim, so don't, like when you're going on CJ Pony Parts and you see something that looks like a drip rail, make sure it doesn't say molding, because it's just the chrome molding that goes on the outside. So what we have to do, because we have no options, we can't pull one off of another car because they disintegrate, we have to use a Fastback drip rail. Now you do have another option, and that is shave drip rails, which we've shown in the past on our S code. It can turn out really, really good. There are some modifications that you have to do, just like this, obviously, and making it watertight and seam seal, all of that good stuff. But we're not doing that. We want a drip rail. Now, a disclaimer, I have no idea if a chrome molding is going to fit this afterwards. So there is a solid chance after making this, putting up the drip rail, etc., that you won't be able to put a chrome molding on it. But you either have a drip rail or you don't, pretty much. One step you could take, so owner of this car, we're not going to be doing a chrome molding on it. But one step you could take is you could buy the chrome molding and try to shape it from there. But we're going to be dealing with a lot of bends here. So as you can see, this is how a drip rail is supposed to sit. You're going to have your tab right here that mounts to the actual inner structure, and then your roof is supposed to sit down here in this channel. You'll notice though that this doesn't fit well at all. The measurement to the outside of your drip rail from your A-pillar, let's get in right here, this to the outside of your drip rail should be ballpark 2.5 inches. If you set this down right here, it actually comes out to the right measurement. But then if you pan up a little bit, you'll see that in this corner up here, this is a completely different bend. The same thing goes here. You'll notice that my roof line is a little bit different on Fastbacks, and then the most egregious spot where this is completely different is this back corner. You can see just like barely pushing it out, this is going to start to crease. This is not as simple as just bending this back because you end up with a giant crease right here. So what we're going to have to do is basically put on the roof, rough mount the drip rail up, and then we're going to have to section this out into at least 3 different sections. Now I did the side over there. We ended up taking off the straight part right here, cutting it here, coming back, doing the same thing, cutting out the corner here, leaving the straight pieces. And then basically it's a process of kicking the shit out of it and making it work. So here you can see that we have the square lined up. So this is where we want the drip rail as far as length down the A-pillar. So we have that where we want. I threw a screw in there. So basically where I'm going to start is this middle section. So I want to cut out all the curves to this. So my thought here is to cut right about here. There's a little tiny ridge here, and I'm just going to cut it right there. That'll be my center section. And then I'm going to do something similar right here. I'm just going to cut right about here. And then, so this is actually bolted on underneath. I'll show you another issue that we run into here with these drip rails. The drip rails are actually too wide for coupes. The roof is supposed to, so this flat piece of the roof is supposed to set down into this flat channel right here. So we actually can't get this drip rail in far enough, so you're going to see how we're going to deal with this, but we're going to end up cutting this drip rail to make it thinner. So we're cutting the drip rail to fit to the roof, not to the rest of the car, basically. So since I have this mocked up about where it needs to go, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my 2 cuts, one right there, one right there, and I'm going to be left with this center section. Then I'm going to take the roof and the drip rail over there, and we'll shoot to a time lapse of me modifying it. There's going to be a lot of heat and a lot of hammering involved, but I'll show you where I cut the drip rail so that we can have a spot to weld to. All right, so we have made both of our cuts, so we have the center section left. I took off the other 2 pieces, the front and back. Now we're going to just take an awl. I prefer this over soapstone, and we're going to mark this lip of the roof underneath exactly where this drip rail ends. This is our reference mark, so that when we take this off, we know exactly where it mounts up to the roof. Very important. All right, so real quick, after test fitting the drip rail, it's going to take a little bit of bending. But what we're going to do to make this all a little bit easier, this is the piece that if you have a Fastback, this would normally be going on your inner structure and get welded like that, essentially on your inner structure going this way. What we're going to do is we're actually going to take this crease, we're just going to lop this off, this whole piece off, because we don't really need it. That's not how we're attaching it to the roof. So we're not going to worry about this. And then what that does is it leaves us about a 1/2 inch that we can end up folding over, and we'll do a time lapse of me doing it. But we're gonna take this 1/2 inch and we're actually gonna knock it down with some heat and a hammer to the roof, and then this can act as our new tab to actually spot weld the drip rail to the roof. So time lapsey. All right, here's what we're looking at. I used my awl mark right there, lined it up at both ends. Now, this has a little bit of a funky bend to it, so it's not going to be completely flush, but if you can get these style clamps, this actually makes it a lot easier. We use this on these on Fastback conversions as well. So as you saw, we applied heat the whole way, the whole length. More clamps are good. I don't have many of these that aren't broken anymore. More clamps are good because what you'll notice is this actually has a little bit of a different bend, like I was showing you on the inner structure of the car. But when you're applying heat to this and you have the clamps down, it actually helps mold this drip rail to this roof shape. And then you just go along and tap, 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 tap all the way along. Make sure that once you mount, you actually look underneath and make sure that the gap between the roof and the side of the drip rail is exactly where you want it once you finally mount it. So, holes, weld, get her done. Pop the roof back on after welding this. This is our first part. Fairly even all the way down. I did notice that the cut of the roof was a little bit waved, but that's okay, not a big deal. You guys are probably going to wonder how we're going to tie this all together, because a large point of the drip rail is to channel water away down the back of the car. Also, these pieces, the rectangles, they actually cover this gap between the roof and the inner structure to make it watertight. And I don't know if we're going to get to it in this video, but what we're going to do to shore up that gap is essentially squeeze the roof down. Let's get some light in here. Squeeze the roof down and then essentially clamp it down, and then we're going to throw a little piece of rod in this gap all the way along. So that it's watertight underneath, and then we're going to throw some seam seal in this drip rail all the way along. So this thing is going to be completely watertight. Okay, so we're going to get into this corner piece. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm lining up my next section of drip rail, and then I'm just going to roll this back to get the placement. Okay, now from here I want a little bit of a tail of the drip rail to hang out, so I'm probably going to cut right here. So I'll cut straight across, and then next we're going to cut to basically a time lapse of me trimming this up just like I did this one. I'll heat it up, I'll hammer it down, I'll weld it, and then basically for the front, we're going to do, I don't know where that piece is. Thanks, Vanna White. Found it. Going to do the exact same thing in the front, where we're going to line it up about where we want it, just for the sake of length. There's something sticking on under there. I don't know what it's sticking on. But basically right here, so I know that this is the length that I'm going to want. So then I'm going to end up trimming just a little bit in front of it, making sure that the rest of this piece is straight so I don't have to deal with any more bends. So I'm just cutting it at the curves, doing the same thing, heat up, hammer, bend, clamp. Make sure that when you guys are welding this stuff, you turn down the heat a little bit. Most of our videos with conversions, we're using high heat because a lot of it is, you know, thicker paneling. This drip rail stuff is way thin, so just crank down the heat a little bit. Alright, this is where we landed. Look at that. Even did some backlighting for you guys. Alright, this is the side that we just did. I'll give you a glimpse at the driver's side as well. We did take a look at it a little bit earlier. This is the one that I got done before we started filming. Now, I should have learned on this side, but one of the mistakes that I made here, so you can avoid it, did great, welded all the way to here, but you see how I welded at that edge. Now, that's something that's really common practice. I always weld at the edge of seams. And so I just didn't even think about it. But what I forgot was that the sail panel actually slides between the roof and the drip rail. So I'm going to have to take that weld out and create a little room. I actually had to do it on that side. I forgot one extra tip. Thanks, Derry, for telling me, reminding me. When you cut these drip rails, especially when you trim them down this way to start fitting them, you're going to be left with a lot of extra drip rail. Now, one thing that you guys will have to end up doing, this is a part I forgot to talk about, but the roofs come with a big hole there. You're going to be left with this giant gap right here. For some reason, they just don't fill that in. I don't know what the deal is there, but you're going to have to make a patch for that. Now, with the extra drip rail stuff, it just so happens to be pretty damn close to the measurement. So I might, again, this stuff is thin, but I think it's pretty much the same gauge as the roof. So I can use this extra metal, use the heat technique, and get my patch done from there. So little tip, save the extra metal. So our next step here, well, your next step, not mine, your next step in this is to put on the other pieces. Now keep in mind, you're going to have to suck your roof down a little bit once you get your final position in, because you see how high we're sitting where you just need to pull this down. Your next step is to ride the struggle bus, is to fit this piece on and make sure that it lines up with the rest of your drip rail. I'd love to do it in this video, but I tell you the reason that I can't really move much further forward in this video with the roof is an issue. You know, again, this is why we wire wheel our cars and really, you know, dig when we're doing a restoration that we want to keep around for a long period of time. So front part of our filler panel is dog shit. This rear part of the package tray, there's probably a couple of leaks in the roof, vinyl roof again. So we're actually going to have to patch this entire package tray and patch the filler panel as well with those parts on the way. I might document this one and throw it up as well. Let me know down in the comment section if you'd like to see a video of us tearing further into this. I'll try to do a video in the future once we're completely done. We have some more rust on this car that we want to address before it gets to body and paint. Some sandblasting that needs to be done. We're going to be Raptor lining the inside of the car, probably Raptor lining the underneath as well, probably doing a wiring harness on it. So this is really getting a full restoration. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us today. Doing a coupe roof is kind of a pain. Again, the biggest issue is no repop drip rails are available for coupes, so taking your time. This by no means is the only way to do this. I'm sure that comments down below are going to say, well, you could do it this way, you could do it this way. Throw them down there. You know, let's throw all the answers out and you know, identify different fixes for the same issues that a lot of us Mustang guys are going to face. Thanks for following along. Consider subscribing if you found the content helpful. Also consider, if you're a longtime subscriber, maybe clicking the join button, joining our community. There's some benefits there with live Q&As, getting videos released earlier. Submit your video. Give us like a 3-minute video on your ride. It doesn't have to be a Ford Mustang, and it doesn't have to be running and driving or a race car. Tell us about your passion for your car. Keep it to about 3 minutes, and you could be featured on an episode of Lost Socket Garage. So until next time, guys, do what you love. Don't be a dick. And as always, never be tamed. Peace.